The aim of this cassette is to give you a better understanding of the American Staffordshire Terrier, AST, by making you appreciate its traits and characteristics while at the same time helping you decide if you could be the ideal master of this marvellous dog. The first two questions to ask yourself are the following. Why decide to live with an American Staffordshire Terrier? Could I be a good master for this dog? The possible problem could indeed be you. In fact, pass on to another dog if you think that the American Staffordshire Terrier will prove an offensive weapon, or in any case a fighting dog, or simply if possessing one will only be a status symbol for you. The ideal environment for a specimen of this breed is a family in which that extra edge is fully appreciated and brought out with respect to other similar breeds due to strong characteristics of intelligence, balance, devotion, joy and self-confidence, to quote just a few of the undisputed peculiarities of the American Staffordshire Terrier. In fact, let us not forget the endless recognition for rescues given to their masters, for the credit acquired in protection and defence of their property and people, for the work they are able to carry out in accompanying handicapped people and the infirm, not least in the rehabilitation therapy of child victims of psychophysical violence. Recent studies have shown that the company of these dogs, given their characteristics, helps to lower the blood pressure and to decrease anxious states. Therapy Dog Humane Society's Animal Facilitated Therapy Program. Everybody's in agreement on the arrival in America of bull and terrier dogs coming from England, Ireland and Scotland at the start of the 1800s. For his part, Mr. Pascoe supports the theory of the origin of the present-day AST from derivations of the fighting bull and terrier dogs used in England during the 17th to 19th centuries, and already identifiable in the first Staffordshire Bull Terriers and in the Scottish Blue Poll Terriers. The latter in particular, endowed with courage and exceptional temperament, morphologically higher and heavier compared to their English Staffordshire counterparts, and by and large blue in colour, were exported to America. Here, as had already happened in Scotland, the blue-coloured dogs were appreciated in the first shows as they were highly valued. Meanwhile, the dogs proving of different colours, usually tawny and striped, were used for dog fighting and other similar activities then in fashion, bull baiting, bear baiting, dog and lion fights, etc. While the Blue Poll Terrier was already dying out in Europe at the start of the 20th century, new specimens were being born in America from crossbreedings with other early Staffordshire Bull Terriers, descendants of the legendary Paddy and Pilot, Rafferty and Rock, invincible fighters imported and raised by Mr. Cocky Charlie Lloyd, endowed with wholly unusual morphological personality characteristics. These underwent selections and crossbreedings in the years that followed, such as to give rise to a multitude of dogs known by the most varied names, from Pit Dog, Yankee Terrier, Half and Half, Pit Bull, Staffordshire Terrier, American Bull Terrier, American Pit Bull Terrier, etc. However, both Mrs. Fraser and Mrs. Nicholas, as well as many other breeders of the Northeast and elsewhere, are of a different opinion. The latter, generally speaking, give greater credit to the hypothesis of crossbreedings between old bulldogs with early Staffordshire Bull Terriers, which, according to them, are the origin of the bull and terrier dogs imported into America and then crossbred by different bloodlines with Irish fighting dogs of the old family, Corcoran, Leitner Colby, Gashauser, Semmes, Newen, and later on strengthened by the contribution of English Staffordshire blood, Lord's Pilot and Paddy, Feely, Farmer, Deliant, Tudor and Corvino. According to this theory, therefore, the contribution of dogs originating from Scotland is regarded as insignificant for the purposes of the creation of the American Staffordshire Terrier's ancestors. Then there are other versions which limit the breed's origins to straightforward crossbreeding between primitive, large-sized Staffordshire Bull Terriers, aimed at increasing their weight and height, or still others who support the casualness of its origins due to spontaneous crossbreedings, later on fixed between earlier bull and terrier dogs with dogs already present in America and used by pioneers for hunting, the keeping of livestock, and for defending the convoys from large predators. In addition to these theories on the origins enunciated from the viewpoint of American Staffordshire Terrier supporters, countless others exist that give greater prominence to their warlike appearance that was the common matrix of these dogs throughout the 19th century. In most American states, the law that prohibited dog fighting came into force at the end of the century, already present in England in 1835. At this point, the destinies separate. One part of these bloodlines will go on to be destined for fights, while others will be used for the creation of the future AST breed. In 1898, C.Z. Bennett founded the United Kennel Club, and at the same time registered his first dog of American Pit Bull Terrier type at number 1 in the book under the name Bennett's Ring. Almost 40 years were to pass before one of our dogs entered the registers of the American Kennel Club, the only American dog authority recognized up to now by the International Dog Federation, under the name of the Staffordshire Terrier breed. First of all, President Roosevelt, besides breeding them, promoted their image in magazines and military postings of the First World War. During the conflict, a Staffordshire Terrier called Stubby became popular, and not only among the troops, which saved an army division by giving advance warning of a gas attack, carried messages into mined areas, and held a German spy until soldiers arrived. It was thus discharged with the rank of Sergeant of the American Army. In 1921, the growing interest surrounding the breed led to the foundation of the first specialist club, the American Bull Terrier Club, founded at Clay Center in Kansas, that began to outline the first rudiments of a standard directing the enthusiast towards more elegant and homogeneous dogs, discouraging the selection of specimens with excessively molluscoid characteristics and fixing the first reference parameters. Another golden man for our dogs was Will Judy, owner of the Dog World magazine, in which he published big articles, had splendid covers portraying the AST with politicians and American show business figures, and who created amusing comic strips with our canine friends as protagonists. The standard was recognized by the IDF on the 10th of June 1936. The American Staffordshire Terrier was born, definitively named American Staffordshire Terrier in 1972, whereas the standard has not undergone variations up to now. The first dog registered was a bitch named Wheeler's Black Dinah. The first officially exhibited was Donald Shiner in August of 1936 in Illinois, while officially on the previous 23rd of May at the Morrison-Essex Show, or STCA, the standard was experimented with a National Parent Club. The American Staffordshire Terriers that play the character of Pete deserve another special mention. The first was Pete D, born in 1929, a dog actor which first with cinema in the 1930s and 40s, in the famous films Big Ears and Shiver Me Timbers, and then in the 1950s with the TV serials That Little Rascal and Our Gang, contributed to the growth of our dog's popularity among the public. Remakes are regularly produced of a gang of children led by American Staffordshire Terriers with white heads and dark ringed eyes, the most recent of which dates from 1995. The American Staffordshire Terrier must give the impression of an enormous power in relation to its size. It is a well-built dog, muscular but agile and pleasant, taking an interest in the environment surrounding it. The dog must be robust, strong, and must not be high on its limbs, nor have physical weaknesses in its figure. Its courage is proverbial. Head of average length and extremely deep. The upper part of the head is wide, the musculature of the cheeks is very pronounced, and the stop is distinct. The ears extend upwards. Ears cut or uncut. Uncut ears are much preferred, which however must be short, half rose-shaped or straight. Hanging ears are to be penalized. Eyes dark and round, deeply set in the upper part of the head and distanced from each other. The eyelids must not be pink. Muzzle of average length, round in its upper part, falling brusquely under the eyes with well-developed, defined jaws. The jaw must be strong and powerful and show notable strength in its hold. Thin and even lips, taut, not hanging. The upper incisors should be in contact with the front part of the lower. Shoulders, vigorous and muscular, with wide and slanting shoulder blades. Dorsum, fairly short, slightly hanging from the withers up to the crupper, with a brief and gentle curve up to the junction of the tail. The kidney is slightly raised. Torso, pronounced, arched vault of the long ribs in the direction of the rear. Elastic, and in movement must not roll nor amble. Coat, dense, short hair, hard to the touch and shiny. Colour, all the colours are admitted, the single colour, multicolour and striped colour. Pure white, or those with more than 80% of white, are not encouraged. Black dapple and liver are pink flesh-coloured noses, Dudley nose, light eyes, tails that are too long or held badly, inadequate hold, prognathism or inognathism. Mould the nature and fierce temperament of its ancestors, unimpaired by selection for dog shows, the personality of the AST has remained unchanged. Except for the inevitable differences in temperament between one dog and another, every dog is a separate individual, there are some significant components common to all the specimens of this breed. The American Staffordshire Terrier is the typical model of pride and awareness of itself, and this not only at home but also in dog shows, in the park and in the streets, where in any case it expresses cheerfulness and a desire to be loved. It is vigorous and full of strength, but at the same time is gentle and sensitive with all those people it loves. It is docile and good with children, an eternal puppy. It loves to play at tugging the cord, frisbee, fetching and bringing the ball, engaging in agility and in all sporting activities as long as they are shared with its master. It accepts being told off, and in this way shows the boss its affectionate nature. It is, however, to be rigorously set, starting from the 10th to 12th week of life. The AST does not bear grudges. It is a very open and willing dog. It loves to play with the friends of its owner, and also kind strangers, provided that its master is present and allows it to do so. The uninitiated very often think that their American Staffordshire Terrier greets friends in a friendly way while forcefully stopping suspected strangers by preventing them from doing anything if need be. It immediately understands the difference between good and bad intentions. It is an exceptional guard dog and watchdog by nature, unique, an authentic bodyguard. Thanks to its notable adaptability, it easily lends itself to changes in house and environment, and even a new owner does not give it particular problems, provided that the new group makes it feel loved and wanted. Its desire to attack its fellow creatures varies from dog to dog. The American Staffordshire Terrier is a dog that is so conscious of its own powers that it does not have to prove anything to anybody. If, however, another dog were to provoke it, then it would be immediately ready to fight. It does not have a timid and subdued character in the slightest, therefore you should always, in any event, avoid this happening. American Staffordshire Terriers with an ugly character are the exceptions. The inheritance of a bad nature is rarely seen in this breed. Some dogs develop a problematic character because of a negative environment. Unfortunately, sometimes certain people find satisfaction in making their own dogs aggressive. That is, taking a good puppy and only feeling satisfied when they lead it to attack dogs and people. Then there are those who transform a puppy full of pride into a creature full of fear, until it loses all instinct of self-defense and defense of its master. Finally, others buy a puppy, play with it for a while, and the novelty having worn off, forget about it and ignore the dog, leaving it in an enclosure or chained up. An American Staffordshire Terrier kept in this way without human contact is unable to develop its true nature, character and personality. American Staffordshire Terriers are endowed with considerable intelligence, clearly superior to that of the average dog, with a truly unusual processing ability of external stimuli, resulting in the need for a master of at least equal intelligence. Their protective instinct is normally revealed beginning from the 10th month of age, subject to exceptions. Anyway, a dog endowed with a good nature will never attack a person without a valid motive, but will react immediately, for instance, to the doorbell or to a stranger approaching the property. The AST does not need encouragement to protect the family and the house, nor specific training. It is best to leave everything to its free will without forcing it. Instead, it will be necessary for the puppy to undergo a serious socio-educational program. Although, as already explained, every American Staffordshire Terrier has its own personality, state of mind and sensitivity, which make it an individual in itself, they all have two characteristics in common that could be used for their education. The first is that every American Staffordshire Terrier wishes to be liked by its master. The second is their innate level of intelligence. It has been shown that on average, an AST possesses an intellectual capacity which is roughly comparable to that of a 2-year-old child, and that its learning abilities are based on the direct connection between cause and effect. Dogs readily repeat actions that arouse pleasant sensations in them, whereas they skip those actions which lead to unpleasant effects. The instructor must establish that the dog understands the commands given to it in order to be able to fully develop its abilities. Consequently, he/she will praise the dog when it obeys, whereas he/she will scold it, correcting it when it makes a mistake. The commands must be as brief as possible and must be repeated in the same way daily: sit, stand, to bed, etc. The modulation of the human voice is also very important. For instance, a flattering tone will encourage an American Staffordshire Terrier to throw itself into a new task. Praise given with enthusiasm makes the dog understand that the owner is satisfied and proud of it, while a curt "no" will serve to make it understand that it has done something wrong. The reward for a correct action could simply consist of some praise and a stroke. Both reproaches as well as compliments must immediately follow the action completed by the dog so as to be effective. No American Staffordshire Terrier should learn anything in a condition of terror. In fact, if you are decisive and firm without giving way to anger, the dog will understand much more quickly that which it has been taught. Man's friendship and comprehension, just like love and respect for the dog, are crucial elements for a serene relationship crowned with success. The dog should never be hit, either with hands or with an object. Nevertheless, some slight exceptions are possible. If a no given with a definite tone is not sufficient to stop its intentions, then you can give it a light smack under the chin while repeating the command at the same time. It is wrong to call a dog to you only to then punish it, since in this way it associates the punishment with the call, the last completed action. You should never allow your American Staffordshire Terrier to chew old slippers, shoes, or in any case household objects, in the pretense that it understands the difference between valued objects and useless objects. Caution: nylon stockings, wooden objects and many other toys could cause serious problems such as constipation, obturations, allergies, poisoning and in extreme cases even death. It is therefore important to allow your dog to chew only bones or toys that are easily digested. At around 3 months you may begin with obedience training. However, home education begins the same day in which the puppy sets paw in the family. The first thing that an American Staffordshire Terrier must learn is its name. During play, it is necessary to call it always and only by its name. Talk to it while stroking and touching it, since this is the only way for it to be able to get used to human contact with the family members and later on with the vet, friends and judges at dog shows. American Staffordshire Terriers are clean animals by nature that dirty their living space against their will. Naturally, a puppy should be taken outside as often as possible to go to the toilet, immediately after each meal, and only after it has finished its business should it be allowed to re-enter. Afterwards, having learned to control its own physiological functions, 2 or 3 daily outings will be sufficient. Do not be lenient in its training. Educate with a firm hand, subduing every exuberance without resorting to violence. Devise your own educational and socialization program. Having finished the training period, you will be able to count on an irreplaceable and loyal friend for life. Always take your American Staffordshire Terrier with you. It is the best anti-theft device on the market. You should never let an adult American Staffordshire Terrier run freely off its lead in public places, given its characteristic of never refusing another dog's challenge if provoked. Lastly, we would like to give you some tips before you become the owner of an American Staffordshire Terrier. Choose a qualified breeder specializing in American Staffordshire Terriers who has the breed's future at heart. Ask for all the necessary information and documents at the moment of purchase: the dog's pedigree, or at least a copy of the parents' pedigrees, medical card, check that the dog has completed its course of vaccinations, and tattoo number. Establish the ideal diet for your AST with an expert and follow it to the letter. Buy the best on account of health, typicality and character. Do not hesitate on the price. Make sure that the American Staffordshire Terrier can adapt itself to your character and lifestyle before buying one. Subject the puppy to an early domestic program of education and public socialization. Emphasize its excellent qualities to the public, promoting a positive image. Be responsible owners. Do not in any way neglect your American Staffordshire Terrier. Do not act as breeders. Leave selection and reproduction to the specialists. If in doubt, after a second opinion, sterilize or castrate unsuitable dogs. Do not teach or encourage aggressive behavior in your American Staffordshire Terrier towards anything or anybody. Do not allow it to have a distorted public image. Do not allow or feed the diffusion of false or distorted stories on the breed, in which case remember that the American Staffordshire Terrier has been officially recognized for over 60 years, has an official IDF standard and a prestigious tradition. Do not have an AST as a guard dog and watchdog only to gratify your own ego. Do not buy a male if you already own a dog of the same sex. Do not allow a dog to run freely in public places once it is an adult. Do not have an American Staffordshire Terrier if looking after it would create problems, if you do not have time to educate and socialize it, or if you do not want to take on a long-term commitment towards it. And remember, an American Staffordshire Terrier is mutual love and passion. A proper diet is essential to your dog's correct and full development, so as to be able to keep it in perfect shape and health. Some people believe that dogs can eat virtually anything, and therefore give their dogs all kinds of food, often recycling the leftovers from their own meals. This is a serious mistake, since what may be digestible to us and a source of nourishing substances often cannot be digested by dogs, or is unable to be metabolized. A final piece of advice: It sometimes happens that a dog loses its appetite and refuses food for 1 or even 2 days. This is a normal occurrence, and in these cases it is a good rule not to always leave a full bowl of food down for the dogs. Instead, the food should be removed after a short time. Present the bowl of food again at the following mealtime after having changed its contents. In the event of loss of appetite lasting for more than 2 days without the presence of side symptoms, or if it is accompanied from the outset by symptoms of general suffering or exhaustion, consult your vet immediately. It is very likely to be an ordinary ailment, but in this case it is not worth taking a risk, and it is better to seek reassurance from an expert. We will now begin with a brief description of a dog's digestive apparatus. As in all carnivores, the stomach is of large dimensions, whereas the intestine is relatively short. Initial digestion in the stomach takes from 3 to 8 hours. Then the food passes into the intestine, where the nourishing substances are assimilated, which are then transmitted to all the organs through the blood. The stomach's large capacity and the slow digestion process allow abundant meals to be eaten at fairly spaced out intervals. Naturally, to keep dogs in excellent health, it is necessary to provide them with all the elements that they require, that is, proteins, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, and minerals. When dogs were carnivorous predators, these elements were assimilated by dogs through the animals that they hunted, and which were generally herbivores. Afterwards, civilization has led it to feed differently, but it will always be necessary to provide dogs with the appropriate substances. Dogs produce energy from their diet, which is then used for the maintenance of vital functions and movement. The more active a dog is, the greater the energy intake it will require. Without going into detailed food studies that would require a specific treatise, we can simply say that dogs particularly require fats or lipids, both of animal and vegetable origin, and it is these which provide the necessary energy and which accumulate in the organism to provide possible energy reserves. The proteins that make up the large part of the animal's body are also essential. These are indispensable to the formation of all the tissues, especially muscles, and also constitute the basis of hormones and the blood. They therefore represent an irreplaceable element in a proper diet, even more so in puppies, which must build their bodies. Sources of protein are meat, cheese, eggs and fish, which are well digested by dogs, and also soybean flour, peanuts, legumes, which are however digested with more difficulty. An excess of proteins is harmful and can lead to various kinds of disorders, depending on the conditions. Carbohydrates are not essential to a dog's diet. They are, however, very useful at the end of pregnancy. Starch, which is the most important carbohydrate present in the diet, is poorly digested by dogs and needs to undergo preliminary treatment such as cooking, flaking, etc. This is why if you use pasta or rice as a food for your canine friend, it needs to be boiled for a long time to eliminate a large part of the starch present. Fiber, which often accompanies carbohydrates, is especially useful in the diet of sedentary dogs, since it helps to prevent constipation, given the speed with which it passes through the alimentary tract. Vitamins are also necessary, even if in infinitesimal amounts. They are found in many vegetables and are synthesized by herbivorous animals. This is the reason why when a carnivore kills its prey, generally herbivorous, it immediately feeds on the intestines, where there are residues of partially digested vegetable matter. This also explains why, to your considerable annoyance, your dog often eats the excrement of herbivorous animals as soon as it gets the chance. A build-up of vitamins can be harmful, and therefore, if you use pre-prepared feed, you should carefully check the substances contained in the feed before adding supplements, and if in doubt, consult your vet. Minerals are essential to the diet and are supplied by foods. Deficiency in certain minerals such as calcium, iron, potassium, sodium, copper and others can cause abnormal growth in puppies, also with serious consequences and general debility in adult dogs, or the onset of problems of varying degrees. There is excellent pre-packed feed on the market, both moist and dry types, that provide all the necessary elements for initial growth, and to then keep your dog in top shape. Even if you use pre-packed feed, you will however be able to give some fruit or other food which your dog will find tasty, taking care not to exaggerate and not to give harmful substances such as sweets, fried foods, rice dishes, fresh or soft doughy bread that are extremely harmful and which can also have very serious long-term consequences. Instead, if you want to prepare the food yourself, then follow the advice of the breeder who sold you the dog, or your vet's advice. As a general rule, it is worth knowing that meat, ideally beef, is essential. If pork meat is given, it must be well cooked in order to avoid infections. Poultry, meat and rabbit are also fine, provided that they are completely boneless. Giblets, although less rich in nourishing substances, are well liked. Fish is an excellent food and is best given cooked. It is particularly advisable for low-fat diets for dogs with digestive or skin problems. It is also an excellent means with which to make the diet less monotonous. Eggs are appetizing and supply many nourishing substances. They are particularly advisable for puppies and suckling females. Yolks can be consumed raw, whereas the albumin should always be cooked. Fats, such as lard and oil, are always readily accepted by dogs and are particularly useful during moments of work or physical effort. 1 or 2 teaspoonfuls of oil added to food are always beneficial. Dry bread is a good energy source, but it must be well dried. It is also useful for cleaning your dog's teeth and for keeping them in good condition. Pasta and rice are very useful, but as we have already said, they should be cooked very well to eliminate starch, which is not easily digested. Fruit and vegetables, even if not essential, can be given to dogs that appreciate them. However, the nutritional intake is very slight and is only worthy of note for the intake of roughage. Needless to say, the final element which is essential to nutrition is water. Fresh and plentiful, that must be available at all times. If in a bowl, it should be changed as often as possible, especially during hot spells. It is absolutely indispensable to dogs that eat dry and not moistened feed. The final aspect of the diet to take into consideration is the frequency of meals. From birth, puppies have their meals by following times that are spaced out by the instinct of the mother and the other siblings in the litter. The feeds are gradually reduced during weaning and are integrated with suitable foods that should be recommended by an experienced breeder or a vet. Between 1 and 3 months of age, weaned puppies should have 4 meals at regular intervals. From 4 to 7 or 8 months, the number of meals can be reduced to 3, further reduced to 2 meals at 8 to 18 months, and afterwards, if desired, down to just 1 meal a day, even if it is not harmful to continue with 2. On the contrary, this is recommended by certain individuals. The decision to have a dog is an important one to make, which must be thought over carefully without ignoring some useful basic information. The vaccination prophylaxis must always be carried out with utmost care to try and protect not only the puppies but also adult dogs from the most common illnesses. Generally speaking, a puppy leaves the breeder after having been vaccinated at around 40 to 45 days with a triad vaccine against canine distemper, infectious hepatitis and parvovirus. A second quadrivalent vaccination, also including leptospirosis as well as the 3 ailments already mentioned, is generally carried out after 3 weeks. An additional vaccination can be carried out after a month, again quadrivalent, to be then replaced annually throughout the dog's lifespan. A dog can be vaccinated only if it is in perfect health and thus also free from endoparasites. Appropriate anti-helminthic treatment must be carried out normally twice a year. Different types of ascarids exist, each of which specifically infests an animal species, man included, and there is practically no risk of zoonosis, that is, transmission of the infestation from dog to man. It is important that dogs are also kept free from ectoparasites, that is, those that live on dogs such as fleas and mites, both of which are hematophages. Moreover, fleas act as an intermediate host for a type of taenia. Numerous specific products exist to free dogs from these annoying parasites, but one must not forget to also carry out appropriate disinfesting operations in the areas where dogs live. The arrival of spring exacerbates the problems caused by undesired guests, the mites that arrive along with the initial spring warmth. A run in the meadows through woods, perhaps near groups of farmhouses and farms where there is livestock, can result in our canine friend returning home with mites. Not necessarily, since some factors may exist which make a dog more or less susceptible, also depending on its general state of health, that can influence whether or not a dog will pick up these acari. They represent a grave danger to dogs because they transmit pyroplasmosis, a serious infection carried by protozoa of the Pyroplasma species that affects pets and also causes death if not discovered and treated in time. The symptoms in its acute form are represented by fever, also sthenic, asthenia, pallor of the apparent mucous membranes, and hyperchromia of the urine that can also become brown-black in colour. In advanced cases, jaundice and a comatose state which could possibly result in death. The mites suck blood for 2 or 3 weeks, and once having mated, the female then detaches itself from the animal and deposits the eggs a week later. The deposited larvae, recognizable by their reddish colour, are minute, like tiny beads. They also look for a host on which to climb, sucking blood for several days. They then detach themselves and after a few days change into octopede nymphs of bluish colour. They become adults towards August or September. With the arrival of autumn, the adults immediately upon hatching then lay dormant in cracks in the ground until the next spring. In general, the mites attach themselves to less thick skin, such as ears, armpits, groin, between the digits of the paws. Therefore, as a precautionary measure, we should always examine our canine friends for signs of any undesired guests after a walk in the open. Correct dog hygiene starts with coat care. For most breeds, but not all, it is advisable to brush the coat almost daily in order to remove the hairs that have reached the end of their life cycle. The coat of many breeds requires specialized grooming which is to be carried out several times a year. One must not generalize about the fact that a shiny coat is a sign of good health, since in some breeds it should have a tendency to be dull. Dogs must not be washed too often so as not to damage the protective function of the sebaceous glands. The skin in normal conditions should always look clean, without dandruff deposits or desquamations of any kind. Should cutaneous alterations appear, such as eczema, alopecia areas, i.e. hair loss and failure of hair regrowth, thickening or the appearance of abnormal pigmentation, consult your vet without delay. Cutaneous alterations due to mycosis or mange are spread by contagion, but only in the case of particularly debilitated animals and when one fails to observe the most basic hygienic rules. Claws must also be checked periodically. These are normally worn down in dogs that undergo normal physical activities, but it may be necessary to shorten them with the aid of a special tool. Oral hygiene should never be overlooked, and especially in miniature breeds, tartar removal is necessary from time to time because it can cause pyorrhea and bad breath. Certain bones are available on the market that, besides constituting a treat for our four-legged friend, act as a natural toothbrush. In puppies aged between 4 and 6 months, the deciduous dentition is gradually replaced by the permanent one. Regular inspections of the mouth are advisable during this period to check that everything is okay. The existence of cardiopulmonary filariasis, a serious disease caused by a nematode parasite, Dirofilaria immitis, or the blood and heart, has been known for several centuries, as has been known the important transmission mechanism of the disease by the mosquito for about a century. However, it is only in the last 20 years, due to the rapid diffusion of filariasis in dogs kept for company and work dogs, that research institutes, pharmaceutical companies and vets have paid increasing attention to the problem. It is therefore important that dog owners are also aware, even if in general terms, of the existence and phenomena of the parasitosis. The transmission of the disease occurs through the mosquito's sting, which takes up the filaria larvae by sucking blood from an infected subject to then inoculate them into another healthy dog. The high contagiousness of the parasitosis is therefore easily understandable, in addition to its seasonality, spring-summer. During a period of around 6 months, the larvae in the dog's blood grow into adult worms that are situated in the heart and pulmonary arteries. In turn, the adult filariae produce small larvae called microfilariae which will live in the blood. The dogs most affected are obviously those that spend more or less long periods outside, hence gun dogs, work dogs, and those that sleep in the open. The damage induced by the presence of the filariae is of considerable seriousness for that which concerns the cardiocirculatory function, and initially shown as a tendency for dogs to tire easily and the presence of a cough or respiratory dysfunction. The vet giving treatment at this stage will perform different clinical and laboratory tests that will confirm the presence of the parasites. On the contrary, the damage caused by chronic cardiopulmonary filariasis is extremely serious. The alteration of the cardiocirculatory function is often accompanied by liver and kidney lesions and a state of generalized hypersensitivity in the whole organism. The prevention programs that have only been practicable for a few years thanks to the use of specific new drugs are simple to carry out and do not involve toxicity risks for dogs. After having carried out a test to ensure the absence of a previous infestation, the oral administration of a medicine once a month for the duration of the entire hot season will give dogs effective protection, also if they are stung by an infected mosquito.